In the last video, I introduced the stages of thought leadership, including the first stage, incubation, and what's required to move through that stage. Today, I want to talk about the pitfalls of incubation and what causes thought leaders to stay stuck here for too long. There's actually several pitfalls, but today I want to talk about two of the big ones. The first one is jumping ahead to marketing instead of developing your message. Now, this may look like things like launching a podcast, rushing to write a book so you can get it out on Amazon, spending lots of money on branding and websites and different elements of the platform. And this is human nature. Like, we want to be doing something. And the thing is, in incubation, the work of developing our message is happening behind closed doors. So it can feel like nothing is happening. I'm not making any progress. And that anxiety builds. And then one day a thought leader might say, I've got to be doing something. I'm going to start that podcast. I'm going to work on that book. And while these decisions are really understandable, they often end up in the same places. It looks like the book that's been published that hasn't been sold beyond just friends and family, or the podcast that's so generic, it's not really changing the conversation in the industry, or the website copy and branding that has to be thrown in the trash because it's no longer relevant. And the truth is, no amount of marketing can make up for an underdeveloped message. Now, in incubation, it doesn't mean that you won't be sharing your message. You'll just be sharing it through what I like to call a series of controlled experiments. So you might phone up a trusted industry colleague and say, hey, here's the idea I've been working on. Listen to their questions, consider their feedback. Or you might pull together 5 trusted clients into a focus group and walk them through the various elements of your concept. Test some things with them, get their feedback, hear their questions. So you will be sharing your idea. It's just going to be mostly behind closed doors instead of on a bigger stage, such as a podcast or a book. Which brings me to the second pitfall, which is going public too early. Now you might think that's in total contradiction to what you just said. Because yes, in incubation, there is some back and forth dialogue that's actually required to develop your message enough to where you're ready for the second stage. But what I mean by this is sharing your underdeveloped idea too early and on too big of a stage. Because when you are called to change the conversation and you share your underdeveloped message, your audience is feeling a bunch of things. They know you're onto something, so they're really excited, but they also might be confused. They may not see how all the pieces get fit together. They may have some questions. They may start poking holes. They might even see that there are pieces missing and they try to fill in the gaps for you. And this is frustrating. It doesn't feel good, especially when we can be poking those holes behind closed doors. But there's also 3 side effects of going public too early. The first one is that you can take a hit to your confidence and feel like, oh my gosh, this feedback is devastating. Should I really be doing this? I don't know. I don't want to share my message. And you may stay in incubation too longer as a result. Or secondly, you may listen to that audience feedback, take it so literally that it sends you off on a totally wrong path to further develop your message. It reminds me of the Neil Gaiman quote. He's a famous author of multiple genres. And he talks about the idea that our readers and audiences are often accurate in spotting gaps or things that aren't working with our idea, but they're often wrong about what is required to fix that. So if we take that advice literally, we may end up spending lots of time, money, and energy going down a wrong path that's not going to develop the idea. And third, we might end up questioning our commitment. And when you're called to change the conversation, that means you have something significant to offer your audience and your industry. And when you hold back and put that idea to the side, you're not only doing a disservice to yourself, but you're doing a disservice to your audience and industry who really needs to hear what you have to offer. So these are 2 of the big pitfalls in incubation. And what I know to be true is the fastest path through this stage is to keep coming back to developing your message and to developing the messenger. Now, developing the messenger, there's a lot of nuance to this, and it looks, custom depending on the person, but we touched on 2 of the key pieces today, which is developing that emotional resiliency and securing that commitment, putting a stake in the ground to say, I am the messenger for this message and I'm committed to changing the conversation. And those are 2 of the big pieces that will take you into the second stage, which is building. More on building in the next video.